The Life of Marie Poussepin, On the Path to Canonization, English language version. I am Marie Poussepin, and this is my story. In the heart of Dordogne, a small French town, a marriage was celebrated that would mark the beginning of a luminous history. Claude Poussepin, a master weaver, and Julienne Fourier, a woman of deep faith and tenderness, united their lives in a simple ceremony, yet full of hope. They were neither noble nor rich, but they shared something more valuable: the commitment to honest work, Christian devotion, and the desire to form a family guided by solid values. This home, woven with threads of love and responsibility, would be the first workshop where Marie's generous soul would be forged. The birth of Marie Poussepin. It was the year 1653, and in the home of Claude Poussepin and Julienne Fourier, the first cry of a girl who would change the course of many lives was heard. Marie was born in Dordogne, France, into a simple but deeply Christian family. From her cradle, surrounded by threads and spinning wheels, Marie breathed an atmosphere of work, prayer, and service. Her mother, a pious woman, lulled her with songs that spoke of love and self-giving. Her father, a weaver by trade, dreamed that his daughter would grow up strong, wise, and generous. Thus began the life of the one who would later be called the Apostle of Charity. The baptism of Marie Poussepin. On October 14, 1653, Marie was taken to the parish church of Saint Pierre in Dordogne. Her parents, Claude and Julienne, knew that baptism was not just a rite, but a consecration, an act of total surrender to God. The priest poured the holy water over the child's head. In that instant, Marie was welcomed into the Christian community, marked by the grace that would accompany her throughout her life. The godparents, carefully chosen, represented the commitment to guide her in the faith. In the reverent gloom of the Saint Pierre Church, Marie approached the altar with a heart full of emotion. Dressed simply, but with an inner light that made her shine, she received the body of Christ for the first time. She was still a child, but she already understood that this act was not just a rite. It was a covenant, a surrender, a promise. From that day on, the Eucharist became the center of her life, the food that would strengthen her to face trials, serve the poor, and found a work that would cross borders and centuries. Communion not only sealed her faith but ignited the fire of charity within her. Julienne teaches her daughter to be merciful. In the cobblestone streets of Dordogne, Julienne walked with a firm step, carrying a basket of freshly baked bread in her hands. Beside her, little Marie followed with watchful eyes and an open heart. It was not just a walk, it was a living lesson in mercy. They would arrive at the doors of the most needy, where hunger was not only physical but also spiritual. Julienne would bend down, offer the bread with tenderness, and say, "God bless you." Marie watched, learned, imitated. In every gesture of her mother, she discovered that charity does not humble but dignifies. That day, like so many others, not only were bodies fed, but the deep desire to dedicate her life to service was sown in Marie. The shared bread became a symbol of a vocation, which would later multiply like the loaves in the Gospel. Julienne and Marie, sowing mercy. Julienne Fourier, Marie Poussepin's mother, was not only a woman of faith but a true teacher of Christian love. Since Marie was little, Julienne would take her hand and lead her to the Saint Pierre Church, not only to pray but to learn to look with compassion. There, between stained glass and silences, Marie heard about the works of mercy, visiting the sick, feeding the hungry, clothing the naked. Her mother did not teach her with words but with gestures, sharing bread with the poor, caring for the elderly, consoling those who suffered. Marie absorbed every act like a seed that would later blossom in her own life. The church was not just a place of worship, but a school of charity. And Julienne, with firm sweetness, showed her that faith without works is like a lamp without light. Thus, in the early years of her childhood, Marie began to understand that serving others was serving God. As the years passed, the home of Claude and Julienne filled with children's voices, laughter, and hope. They were parents to 4 girls and 3 boys, a large family that reflected the love and faith that united them. But life in the 17th century was hard, and the fragility of childhood was evident. One by one, Marie's siblings passed away, victims of diseases and conditions that would be treatable today. Only Marie and her brother Claude survived. Marie, still young, learned to look at pain with eyes of faith. She did not close herself off in sadness but transformed it into compassion. The loss of her siblings did not extinguish her light. On the contrary, it made her stronger, more determined to live for those who did not have the opportunity. In that crucible of suffering and love, the heart of a woman who would later embrace all the poor as if they were her own siblings was forged. In the Poussepin home, Claude's arrival was received with tenderness. Marie, still young, looked at him with the eyes of an older sister, feeling early on the call to care for, protect, and guide him. When their parents passed away, she did not hesitate to assume the role of head of the family, becoming a mother, sister, and teacher to Claude. Claude was one of the first recipients of her silent charity, of that self-giving that would later expand to the whole world. Claude Poussepin, Marie's father, was a hard-working man skilled in the art of weaving silk stockings, a delicate trade that required patience, precision, and dedication. Marie observed him with admiration. She learned from his constancy, his laborious silence, his way of transforming material into stockings. The factory was not just a place of production but a space where values were cultivated, responsibility, honesty, and service. Thanks to that work, Claude was able to support his family, educate his children, and sow in Marie the love for a job well done. Later, she herself would take over the business, not only to sustain it but to turn it into a source of help for the most needy. Julienne, the strong and pious mother, fell ill. Her body weakened, but her spirit remained firm, trusting in God's will. Marie, still young, became her nurse, her consolation, her support. Day after day, she offered her care, prayers, and company. During that time, she learned that serving the sick is touching the face of Christ. But she also learned to let go, to accept the mystery of suffering. When Julienne passed away, the sorrow was deep. Marie felt that the world had stopped. However, in the midst of the pain, something ignited, an inner strength that would propel her to live not just for herself, but for all who suffer. Her mother's death was not an end, but the beginning of a mission. The house was once again clad in mourning. Claude Poussepin, Marie's father, closed his eyes forever, leaving behind not only the pain of his departure but also the weight of a legacy. The silk stocking factory, the fruit of years of tireless work, was left in the hands of his daughter. Marie, still young but tempered by adversity, did not allow herself to be overcome by sorrow. With her brother Claude by her side, she took over the management of the workshop with firmness and vision. She did not see it as a material inheritance, but as a tool for good. She transformed the business into a source of employment for women in need, teaching them the trade and offering them dignity. Marie Poussepin prepared her brother Claude to manage the family factory with justice and dignity, while she listened to God's call. Her vocation propelled her towards Sainville, a place marked by poverty and abandonment, where she wanted to serve the most needy. Without neglecting her family, she left everything in order for Claude to take over with firmness, while she devoted herself to service and charity. The journey to Sainville, a mission of charity. Marie Poussepin, certain of her vocation, departed with her cousin Agnes and another young woman towards Sainville, not as travelers, but as missionaries of charity. Their mission was not to bring riches, but to console, heal, and serve a people wounded by war. With faith and humility, they began a work that Marie understood was. Upon stepping into that village wounded by war, they felt that a new life was beginning. Every face seemed to plead, "Do not forget us." Marie understood that her mission was to console, heal, and restore dignity. With humility, they settled into a small house. There, between prayer and service, a work dedicated to charity, education, the care of the sick, and support for the parish was born. Upon arriving in Sainville, Marie Poussepin and her companions adopted the style of dress of the local women and the Dominican colors of black and white. The house was transformed into a refuge, school, infirmary, and chapel. Every corner was consecrated to service, sharing bread, praying, healing. From that place, they began to visit the sick, educate girls, console widows, and sow mercy in a wounded land. The mission was born in silence, with firm steps and burning hearts. To care for the sick, they cultivated medicinal herbs in their small garden, patiently preparing ointments and infusions. Every plant was a prayer, every remedy a caress. They were not nurses, but consecrated women who saw the face of Christ in every wounded body. Thus, charity became concrete and the earth, an ally of mercy. Upon discovering that children and young people lived without education or opportunities, she began to cultivate intellects and hearts with the same love with which she healed bodies. She opened spaces to teach reading, writing, counting, and praying. They were not formal classrooms, but schools of the soul, where every child was looked upon with respect and every young person with hope. Marie taught letters and values, honesty, faith, responsibility. Her simple but profound pedagogy was woven with patience and tenderness. Marie Poussepin saw her work in Sainville begin to flourish. People who had received her help gratefully joined as collaborators, and together with the community, they acquired a piece of land. With faith and vision, Marie undertook the construction of a larger house, destined for the service of the people. It included a chapel, a center for prayer and spiritual life, and a well, a symbol of shared life and fraternity. Every space was conceived for charity. She was not building walls, but bridges of mercy, thus consolidating a work that would be a home for God, for the people, and for charity. Marie Poussepin welcomed girls in Sainville, offering them food, education, and spiritual formation. She taught them to serve, pray, and console, transmitting to them the charism of charity illuminated by faith. Many consecrated themselves as sisters, dedicated to the poor, the sick, and children. With tenderness and firmness, Marie guided them in an evangelical mission. Her community grew, and over time, her successors expanded the work throughout the world. What began in a humble house transformed into a living congregation and a spiritual family that remains in the heart of the Church. Over the years, Marie Poussepin's work in Sainville was strengthened by opening a school that was simple yet profound in purpose. The girls who sought refuge also found accessible and human education. They learned basic knowledge and Christian values, in an environment where every desk was a symbol of hope. For Marie, to educate was to liberate, and charity included the soul and the mind. Thus, the school became a door to the future for the children and youth of Sainville. Marie Poussepin and sisters, in addition to caring for the sick and educating girls, carefully maintained the organization of the home. They lived charity in the everyday. They cooked, washed, and shared tasks with humility, without privileges. Every action was a prayer, and the house, though simple, radiated dignity. Marie taught them that holiness is born in the small things, and that domestic service is also an expression of mercy. Thus they lived, as a family consecrated to love and service. The house in Sainville, born as a refuge, became a living community marked by fraternity, solidarity, and service. The sisters, formed by Marie Poussepin, lived united in mission, making God's love visible among the poor. Every daily task was prayer and surrender, without hierarchies, with communion. The people recognized them as family, and their joyful service became a prophetic testimony. Marie not only founded a work but a way of living the gospel. Charity embodied in community, forming to serve, praying to announce. Forming to serve, praying to announce. Marie Poussepin understood that her mission had to transcend her personal dedication, by forming sisters capable of announcing the gospel with humility and wisdom. The formation included prayer, discernment, and community work, cultivating the soul in addition to teaching practical tasks. With simplicity and vision, Marie prepared women strong in faith and tender in service. Thus, the community grew, and the sisters became a light for the people, carrying the message of Christ wherever charity called them. In her old age, Marie Poussepin contemplated with joy the community that had blossomed in Sainville. With wisdom and firmness, she drafted regulations of life for her sisters, not as rigid rules, but as evangelical principles that guided prayer, service, and fraternity. Every word reflected her experience and desire to preserve the charism. In them, she left her soul, humility, simplicity, self-giving, and unity. Thus, her legacy lives not only in works but in words, which continue to guide the Dominican Sisters of Charity of the Presentation. With faith and vision, Marie Poussepin presented the regulations of her community to Minister Colbert, seeking official recognition to ensure the continuity of her mission. It was a brave and humble gesture. An evangelical text that expressed the desire to serve the poor, educate, care for, and live in fraternity. She did not ask for privileges, but freedom to love. This act marked a decisive step. The community began to be recognized for its structure, its work, and its fidelity to the gospel. Seeing her community grow, Marie Poussepin sought the bishop's approval to ensure communion with the church. She presented the regulations of life, expressing her desire to live in faith, obedience, and fidelity to the gospel. The bishop recognized in her proposal a work of God, fraternal life, service, prayer, and formation. Moved by her humility, he confirmed her as a founder guided by the Spirit. Thus, the community received ecclesial support and was strengthened to extend its mission beyond Sainville. Inspired by Saint Dominic of Guzman, the Dominican Sisters of Charity of the Presentation live a faith that unites contemplation and action, prayer and service, study and preaching. Marie embraced this charism with depth, taught them to seek the truth in the Word, to pray in community, to serve with joy, and to announce the gospel with works more than words. The sisters learned to discern in prayer, to train with rigor, and to live in fraternity, like the first preachers of Saint Dominic. In every gesture of charity, class taught, or visit to the sick, one breathed light, truth, and mercy. Thus, the community grew in number and spiritual depth. To this day, Dominican spirituality remains the source, path, and horizon for the Dominican Sisters of Charity of the Presentation. Marie Poussepin, after a life of service, prayer, and community formation, died in 1744 in Sainville, surrounded by her sisters and in peace. She left behind neither wealth nor titles, but a legacy that continues to flourish. Her work, born in humility, spread like a living flame. Today, the Dominican Sisters of Charity of the Presentation announce the gospel in over 36 countries, bringing education, health, comfort, and hope to the poorest. Pope St. John Paul II beatified her on November 20, 1994, calling her the social apostle of charity. Her light did not go out with her death. It continues to shine in every sister who serves, in every child who learns, in every sick person who heals, in every gesture of mercy that bears her stamp. In the exercise of charity, her community will be established and grow throughout time. 3 centuries. The most varied and original responses will shape the geographical physiognomy of the congregation. Always attentive to new expressions of human suffering, to urgent needs, to the diverse cries of people. To live charity. To live from charity. And for the exercise of charity, this is the echo repeated by hundreds of sisters who find, since Sainville, the way to live intensely the life that our Lord led on earth. Who find in this unifying project the evangelical path of the service of charity.